still from last week. We're on page 116, and it's a great place as a segue to start again, but I really highly suggest that everybody review those last couple of pages if they're going to reread this. We won't tonight because we don't have enough time, but you would be better off to go back to, say, page 114 and kind of grasp what's being said there, or actually from 113, because we're all about, okay, we're all about the essence of Buddhism. Okay, so it says on the bottom of page 116, the essence of Buddhism of true cause, a struggle against devilish functions. Now, you ready?
Yes.
All right. The substance of the entrustment in the Lotus Sutra. What entrustment is he talking about? The substance of the entrustment in the Lotus Sutra.
It's inside of the. It's inside of the Lotus Sutra.
Yeah. I said the
It's
substance of the
entrusted
Lotus
inside.
Sutra. The substance of the entrustment in the Lotus Sutra lies in its signaling a change in the teacher and in the teachings. Okay, but who does the entrustment take? Where does the entrustment take place? What is the function of the entrustment? What that he's referring to here? The entrustment is talking about chapter 22 or 23, whatever, the entrustment chapter. Okay? Yeah, so the bottom line is it's the handoff from the Buddha of the former in the middle of the day of the law, okay, to the Buddha in his transient status of the latter day of the law. Or in his eternal status, however you want to look at it. Let me continue to go on. Again, it's changing from the Buddhism of true effect to the Buddhism of true cause. That's what makes attaining Buddhahood in Mappo possible. Okay, that's why it had never been possible prior to the correct time and the correct teaching. Do you understand?
Yeah.
And that's already all been laid out in all the sutras, inclusive of the Lotus. And what Nichiren is now qualifying and has qualified is that all Shakyamuni transferred was Nam-myoho Renge-kyo. Nothing more, nothing less, that's it. So the teaching that I've brought forth is the same teaching that Shakyamuni passed on to many treasures, or to many treasures, everybody else that was there. Okay? So, starting on page 116. Everybody's with me? Have I confused anyone? No? Okay. All right. The essence, bottom of 116. The essence of the Buddhism of true cause, which is the Daishonin's Buddhism, a struggle against devilish functions. The substance of the entrustment in the Lotus Sutra lies in its signaling a change in the teacher and in the teachings, with the focus moving from true effect to true cause. Rather than praising these idealistic great entities that exist nowhere else in the real world, okay? Do you understand? As our salvation, as our protectors, our beseeching to, we come to true cause, which is all about you are the Buddha exactly as you are. The source and the power of all of your prayers being answered is you and the inseparable relationship you have with that law. Okay? So, the substance of the entrustment in the Lotus Sutra, which is the handoff coming back in the latter day, right, of the bodhisattvas of the earth, when everybody else wants a piece of it, Shakyamuni says you don't qualify. Remember? Okay. In the Lotus Sutra lies in it signaling a change in the teacher and in the teachings, with the focus moving from true effect to true cause. The simultaneity of cause and effect versus, from going from cause and effect to the simultaneity of cause and effect. All right? The teaching of the simultaneity of cause and effect. Do you understand? Which is why we're able to attain Buddhahood in our present form. We're able to pull the 10th world out of the other 9. Do you understand? All right? The statement at the top of page 116 in the second column. The statement whether or not bodhisattva superior practices has appeared in this world, Nichiren has already made a start in propagating this teaching, is a declaration that Nichiren Daishonin is the teacher of true cause, who will accomplish this great transition in Buddhism, along with his original disciples. Do you understand? Do understand that. It doesn't say that, but that's how Nichiren has professed it to be. The law has been established or been validated and made clear, brought to the surface from being hidden in the depths by Nichiren. But it is his original disciples that will make their advent in the latter day and propagate his teaching and establish this thing we call Kosen Rufu. Do you understand? Everybody's with me, right? There are two distinct groups of people. It's Shakyamuni's people and the original teacher's people. Okay? All right, so throughout his life, because they're disciples, they're both Buddhists, but the disciples of that Buddha, the disciples of the thus come one Nam-myoho Renge-kyo. Do you understand? Okay, so throughout his life, Nichiren held fast to his vow to enable all people to attain enlightenment and to realize a society where all can live in peace and happiness. These are the aspirations of the Lotus Sutra, right? I want to make everybody equal to myself, right? He says, he infused his faith in the Lotus Sutra into the practice of chanting Nam-myoho Renge-kyo. There was no practice of chanting Nam-myoho Renge-kyo prior to Nichiren, which he taught to others without sparing his voice. And he was persecuted by corrupt priests and secular authorities who could not understand the true meaning of the Lotus Sutra. Yet, while encountering momentous obstacles like those described in the Lotus Sutra, so by actually meeting and overcoming, fulfilling the prophecies of the Lotus Sutra, he persevered unflaggingly in his struggle without begrudging his life. He is ready to check it out, check it all in at Tatsunokuchi, and every other time he put himself in harm's way for the sake of the teaching, triumphing overall. Okay? Because he's able to die of old age and his Buddhism was intact and on, okay? Through these struggles, as a human being residing in the Sahe world, he solidly established in his life the merit of practice and the benefit of Buddhahood, and came to manifest the life state of the Buddha of perfect enlightenment, the embodiment of the mystic law of the simultaneity of cause and effect. I am referring to Nichiren casting off his transient status and revealing his true identity as the Buddha of the latter day of the law at the time of the Tatsunokuchi persecution. Okay? But by him doing that, what did that also allow us to do? What did that open the door for all of us to do?
To be able to attain Buddhahood.
Yes, but what is that really? It's exactly what it is for Nichiren. There is no difference between Nichiren and us. This is the point. So, what? Okay, I'll read this first part in orange again. This is what I'm trying to get you to kick in. Through these struggles as a human being, residing in the Sahe world, okay, as a human being, as a common mortal, all right, he solidly established in his life the merit of practice and the benefit of Buddhahood, and came to manifest the life state of the Buddha of perfect enlightenment, the embodiment of the mystic law of the simultaneity of cause and effect. I am referring to Nichiren casting off his transient status and revealing his true identity as the Buddha of the latter day of the law at the time of the Tatsunokuchi persecution. But because he did that, what can we do? What do we do? We embrace the teaching and the object of devotion that he's left behind, and we do exactly the same thing. We become Buddhists embodying the mystic law of the simultaneity of cause and effect. We become bodhisattvas of the earth. We actually reveal that we're bodhisattvas of the earth because that's what we were all along. That's why we can be like Nichiren. Do you understand? We're his original disciples. We're here for a specific purpose. To party a little bit, but mostly to shakabuku everybody, right? Okay, and I'll get into that word shakabuku in a little while. So, Continuing on page 117, because we've already done these gray boxes last week, right? He says, in aspiration for the Buddha land, the first full paragraph there, in aspiration for the Buddha land, which he wrote on Sado Island a short time later, Nichiren says, the secret law that is the one great reason the Buddhas, all of them, make their advent will spread for the first time in this country. How could Nichiren not be the one who will do this? Okay? He also declares the law has already appeared. Okay? So even though he has no predication or basis in terms of doctrine or even any previous teaching, he's that sure about what he's come to realize in his own life. Okay? That he's qualifying it as fact. Okay? And goes on to cite the sutra's prediction. He says he also declares the law has already appeared, and goes on to cite the sutra's prediction of the appearance of Bodhisattva superior practices. That be him. All right? Nichiren, second column, page 117. Nichiren inscribed the Gohonzon, the object of devotion, by embodying in the form of a mandala, that piece of paper with the bars on it, the two wooden dowels, by embodying in the form of a mandala the true cause and true effect that he had manifested in his life. He was able to infuse in this object of devotion the essence of his Buddhahood, the essence of his Buddha nature, which was shared by all living beings, even though it hadn't been revealed yet. Don't understand, right?
Yeah.
He's in the fifth 500-year period. What does that mean? What does being within the fifth 500-year period mean? What's the significance of that?
Mapo age.
Mapo's already started. Mapo kicked off. The clock went around at 2,000 years. Okay, so this is 2000 to 25, just as predicted the time frame for when this individual would make the advent and create the clarity that would lead ultimately to the pacification of the land through the propagation of the law, Kosen Rufu. All right, so he says, and he also established Nam-myoho Renge-kyo of the three great secret laws as the practical means by which all people could achieve lasting happiness, which is the fundamental aim of the Lotus Sutra. And what is the significance of the three great secret laws? They are laws that have always existed, that pertain to the original law of causality, but have remained secret until Nichiren's made his advent. Okay, so the three great secret laws isn't coming from Tentai or Myolo or any of the other people that have preceded the Daishonin that he's constantly referring to their teachings as a validation of the correctness of his. Do you follow? Is everybody with me?
Yes.
Am I making sense? Okay. So, which is the fundamental aim of the Lotus Sutra. Genuine happening, lasting happiness. Okay? That's Kosen Rufu. Nichiren's deep conviction as to his identity as Bodhisattva superior practices, which is mentioned in the Lotus Sutra, right, is evident from statements he makes in various writings. For example, at the top of page 118, in the Teaching, Practice, and Proof, he says, who among our contemporaries, what school of Buddhism is actually propagating the object of devotion and the sanctuary of the essential teaching? Now he's in code here, he's saying of the essential teaching, it's my teaching is the essential teaching. Not a single person, because he's talking about Nam-myoho Renge-kyo there. He's not talking about the second half of the Lotus Sutra when he makes that statement. Do understand that? He says, not a single person carried out this task during the 2,220 years and more following the Buddha's passing. Superior practices, the leader of the bodhisattvas of the earth, has already made his advent in this world. So the great law, the essence of the Lotus Sutra that was entrusted to him, okay, because he's talking about the thing that was entrusted to superior practices, right? When he talks about this law, the law is passed off from Shakyamuni. The bodhisattvas of the earth are supposed to check back in after the 2,000-year time frame, right? Mapo has started, all right? Will spread without fail. So let me read that again. Who among our contemporaries that Daishonin says, what school of Buddhism is actually propagating the object of devotion in the sanctuary of the essential teaching? None of them. Not a single person carried out this task other than me during the 2220 years and more following the Buddha's passing. Superior Practice, as the leader of the Bodhisattvas of the earth, has already made his advent in this world. And since I'm doing all this stuff, maybe that's me. But I can't really say it out loud because you all think I'm being arrogant. So, the great law, the essence of the Lotus Sutra, Nam-myoho Renge-kyo, who was entrusted to him, Superior Practices, will spread without fail. All right, I injected a lot of stuff there to make it clear, but it's clear, right? This passage vividly conveys Nichiren's towering state of life. It is as if he is saying, I am the Buddha. This is the point, though, okay? You can have that same towering state of life. That's nothing more than your realization of your true identity. That's what the Daishonin is talking about. That's what he's qualifying for. All of the future, everybody realize this is all about seeking and finding and then expressing your true identity. Not the one you were born with, the one that you've always had, from time without beginning, from Kuan Ganja. All right? So this passage vividly conveys Nichiren's towering state of life. You've got to have a pretty towering state of life to go off the reservation and say that stuff nobody's ever said before. All right? And have a conviction that you're absolutely nailing it. All right? It is as if he is saying, I alone uphold the banner of the mystic law and have brought to life the spirit of the Lotus Sutra, which is what he was doing. No one can refute this fact. And he can state that because he knows what all the teachings say. And there's nothing to refute anything that he's saying. Understand that. It is an unprecedented event in the history of Buddhism that I have made my advent, that someone like me has made my advent, that someone truly equal to Shakyamuni, the Lord of teaching for the latter day, has made his advent. Do you understand? Do you? Okay, let me know if those looks and those twicks.
No.
Okay. No, I don't believe that. It's like you're making these faces and then you say, oh no, it's nothing. What? What about what I just said is kind of like, everybody else is kind of pretty much going, okay, I hear you. What are you not hearing, dear?
But he's declaring himself.
Exactly.
Being what he
exactly.
is.
But he's
because
not.
Shakyamuni
He is
didn't,
not.
maybe.
Shakyamuni absolutely did declare who he is. All of them did.
Oh.
What was the basis of the
one.
I think I have the correct teaching, but I'm not sure and I don't know. No, none of the teachers taught like that. Okay? And that's not arrogance. I've already said this over and over again. Buddhahood is not arrogance.
Right.
Well, if you qualify what Buddhahood is and that you've embraced the teaching that allows you to express it, and you believe that, I mean, how can you propagate it if you don't believe that? Then you're propagating bullshit. You're propagating my opinion. You're not propagating something that you can profess with certainty that your life can be based on, risked for. Right? I mean, how did Nichiren qualify that his freaking thinking was the real deal? What happened that made him go, shit? I am the Buddha of the latter day.
What did he say? The
What?
Tatsu no
Kuchi persecution.
Yeah.
All right? So he's already gone up against it. He's already said, do your worst. Cut off my head if you can. You can't. Hey, stop the horse. Hachiman! These guys are about to screw up big time. You talk about a little bit of arrogance? That wasn't arrogance. He was predicting what was going to happen in the next 2 or 3 hours. That's not arrogance. That's Buddha wisdom. There's a huge difference. You can consider me to be arrogant. A lot of people consider Daisaku Ikeda to be arrogant. It's a confidence you can't get rid of because it's based on your faith, and your faith is all the way down to your toes. I mean, baby, you don't express yourself any other way than this. Do you understand what I'm saying?
If you want to be
There's no
confident, join.
This isn't about confidence. The world is filled with confident people. This is about having revealed the truth in your life so that you're saying something you're not confident about, you know. There's a difference between passing on something that you heard that you believe is true and something that you freaking know is true. Because you've been participating exactly according to the schedule, and you've been revealing and doing the same stuff yourself. This isn't about supernatural people Nichiren pulling off shit you can't pull off. You, okay?
Because he's not supernatural, or who would be?
Just like us.
Exactly. Supernatural powers of the thus come one are what?
Powers.
Life itself. Being able to move your arms, your legs, and your mouth. Okay? So,
Maybe I can be supernatural.
I'm going to go back because I don't know where I am anymore.
Mario.
Okay, this passage, in the middle of 1:18, first column.
Yeah.
This passage vividly conveys Nichiren's time. And I got to tell you, thank you so much for always sitting here, because 50% of what I say would never come out of my mouth if she weren't here. It's the truth. And everybody else that might get something out of that I would not have thought to say it to them. Okay?
Yeah.
So, don't ever think this is you have a mission to qualify to many people. Yes! There's
know a
no
lot
separation
about
between
go
any of
mission,
us.
yeah.
We're part of a crew.
Yeah.
All right?
Separation.
So, this passage vividly conveys Nichiren's towering state of life. It is if he is saying, I alone uphold the banner of the mystic law and have brought to life the spirit of the Lotus Sutra. No one can refute this fact. It is an unprecedented event in the history of Buddhism. Now, that's a paraphrasing from Daisaku Ikeda. Nichiren never made that quote, okay? In the heritage of the ultimate law of life, too, Nichiren's words resound with his awareness as the teacher of the latter day who inherited the law passed on from Shakyamuni and many treasures and opened the way for its widespread propagation in the latter day of the law. He also calls on his disciples to share his spirit and advance on the same path. So what did he say? Huh? Mentor and disciple, but that's happy talk. What does that really mean?
You have to be in
You have to be
action.
the Buddha in your present form.
Yeah.
All right?
Act.
He also calls for his disciples to share his spirit, that I am the thus come one, without having to change my identity, and advance on the same path as Nichiren, to qualify this to all other people and to make them equal to myself, to allow them to enjoy the fruits and the empowerment of Buddhahood. It is by carrying on Nichiren's teachings and helping others become happy that we can actualize the great path of universal enlightenment that is the goal of Nichiren Buddhism. So he says, it is by carrying on Nichiren's teachings and helping others become happy that all of our power from practicing this Buddhism emanates. That's what that's saying. Okay? It is by carrying on, that carrying on means just as Nichiren. What had just preceded that information, the information preceding that in the previous paragraph. Okay? That's what he's talking about. He also calls on his disciples to share his spirit. He challenges us. Can you hang? Can you really be like me? Or are you just a happy talk wannabe? You're just a social butterfly. You're acting it, but you're not being it. Okay? And there's plenty of those people that chant Nam-myoho Renge-kyo. He also calls on his disciples to share his spirit and advance on the same path. It is by carrying on Nichiren's teachings and helping others, Jigyo Keita, okay, practicing for oneself and others, to become happy that we can actualize the great path of universal enlightenment. Everybody, that's the attainment of Kosen Rufu, right? Everybody, at least a third of the people attain Buddhahood, because practicing is Buddhahood. That is the goal of Nichiren Buddhism. Continuing on 118, bottom paragraph. Nichiren is the Buddha of the latter day of the law who established the Buddhism of the people, a teaching open to all. He proved the power of the Buddhist law through his own lifelong efforts as a Bodhisattva Buddha. Get it? Do we all know what a Bodhisattva Buddha is? What's a Bodhisattva Buddha? What's
in the present form.
Yeah,
So
yeah. But he proved the power of the Buddhist law through his own lifelong efforts as a Bodhisattva Buddha. What is a Bodhisattva Buddha?
By a Buddha in
A Buddha that appears in the 9 worlds, that lives in the 9 worlds, but that is still a 10th world Buddha period. Straight up. He says, and then comma, as an ordinary human being. So that's what we are.
Right.
Okay? And that's why he lived and conveyed that through his own life. So that we would have the qualifier for our ability to achieve the same state. We'd have a target. Okay?
Yeah.
Why have all of the people that have participated in Kosen Rufu preceded us? Is to leave effects in their lives of the movement that we're tagging on to continue. We're just passing batons and passing batons and passing batons. Endlessly. Okay? In the period, everybody's with me?
Yeah.
I like that, my brother. In the period before his exile to Sado, while encountering harsh persecution as a votary of the Lotus Sutra, what's it say there? While encountering harsh persecution as a votary, not as the votary. That means that leaves room for us to all be votaries. That's what we are, votaries of the Lotus Sutra. That's why everything that pertains to him pertains to us. Okay? That's why the way he did it is the way we do it. We're the same. We're human beings. Ordinary human beings is just pre-qualified in the last paragraph. While we don't have to have particular talents or special skills or a high intellect or great wealth or even good health. Any of us at any time can draw forth from this potential based on the simultaneity of cause and effect and make it manifest. Okay?
We are normal. We have all the things we should have.
Exactly. In the period before his exile to Sado, while encountering harsh persecution as a votary of the Lotus Sutra, he maintained a victorious spirit. He battled the 3 powerful enemies, which we will have to do, and surmounted the 3 obstacles and 4 devils, which we will have to do if we're going to attain Buddhahood. Right?
Yeah.
Okay? He set an example of one person resolutely triumphing over the hindrances of death and the devil king, i.e. near execution and life-threatening persecution by the ruling authorities. These are also things that we're going to have to do, frankly. You know, it may not be the government that's opposing us, but it could be ill health, it could be any number of things. Okay? This is what he did at Tatsunokuchi when he discarded his transient status, his status as the common mortal Nichiren, okay, and revealed his true identity, okay? The Bodhisattva of the earth, Nichiren, who's actually the leader of the Bodhisattvas of the earth, and therefore we refer to him as superior practices. Get it?
Yes.
Okay. So Nichiren stated, I survived even the Tatsunokuchi persecution and emerged from other great persecutions. And we know there were 2 or 3 others. He broke his arm. He did more than just Tatsunokuchi. By now, the devil king must be thoroughly discouraged. The functions in the environment that try to screw with us Buddhas that are trying to lead others to this Buddhahood. This is truly a declaration of one person's lofty and heroic spiritual victory over all manner of devilish functions. And I would say anybody that can really mean that when they talk that way has also done the same thing. Nichiren Buddhism is based on the mentor-disciple relationship. Isn't this how President Ikeda talks? Isn't this how President Toda talked? Isn't this how President Makaguchi talked? This is certainly how all my mentors talked, and that's why I'm speaking this way now. Nichiren Buddhism is based on the mentor-disciple relationship. How do each of those teachers become teachers? They have mentors. Okay, everybody goes through this process. You know, was it Dozenbo? Who was his Dozenbo was the priest that he studied under. Everybody's had teachers. Nichiren had teachers. Nichiren Buddhism is based on the mentor-disciple relationship, teaching disciples to persevere in life with the same strength and fortitude as the mentor. That's why you'll have to be strong. You have to leave an example, a living example. Nichiren left behind his example so that all people, by living with the same spirit he did, devotion to the law, not taking even any other teaching, not embracing any expedient means. He spells all this out. We've already read what it is we're supposed to do, right? Honestly discarding expedient means, yada, yada, yada. Nietzsche left behind his example so that all people, by living with the same spirit he did, could lead triumphant lives. In one sense, human beings are weak and vulnerable and find it extremely difficult to break through the darkness of their innate ignorance. But they also have the capacity for infinite nobility when they believe in the fundamental power inherent in their own lives. So when they believe, when they have faith that Nam Myoho Renge Kyo exists within their life, they can tap into the power that Nam Myoho Renge Kyo emanates. Do you understand what that just said? But they also have the capacity, they can understand that they have a Buddha nature. It's not over their head. The 10th world does reside in the other 9. Doesn't matter what other 9 they're in. The capacity for infinite nobility when they have faith, when they believe in the fundamental power, their Buddha nature, inherent in their lives and in the lives of others. So you got to believe it's for everybody else, not just you. It's some American dick, right? It's like everybody's a Buddha. Once you completely come to that understanding, you've accomplished what he's talking about. When people come into contact with the victorious life of a great champion like Nichiren, they can discover their own limitless potential. And when you become a disciple of Nichiren and attain the same state as he has, what do you become? Yeah, Buddha, but that's what he just described. That's my point. When people come into contact with the victorious life of a great champion, of a great Buddha, like Nichiren, like you, possessors of the original teaching, the original law, okay? Those that were entrusted with the mission to propagate it in the latter day, okay? Badasses, every single one of you, pardon me, all right? They can discover their own limitless potential. That's another way of saying badass. When I say badass, I'm talking about somebody that understands they have limitless potential. I'm talking about somebody that is the Buddha. Okay? Victory can take many forms, but there is surely no greater victory than breaking through the darkness of innate ignorance, bringing forth the life state of Buddhahood, and producing an infinite number of successors who can carry on the noble cause of Kosen Rufu. Infinite number. Now, how can you inspire an infinite number of successors? He doesn't throw this shit down just to be saying it.
Of course, a Rufu.
No, be the
Okay, let me read the whole sentence
Being
again.
a Buddha as you are,
Huh?
being a Buddha,
Yeah. But what happens when you do that?
you are the example.
You are the
And then
example.
what happens with you as the example and the teacher, actually? You're not just an example, like, look at me. You're down in the pits trying to make people victorious, right? Let me read the whole sentence again, and then I'll say what I'm trying to say. Victory can take many forms, but there is surely no greater victory than so he's saying, victory, oh, you got your own company, or you finally get those kids that you didn't think you could have, or your father overcame the illness, or you did whatever, okay? That's what he means. Victory can take many forms, okay? But there is no greater victory than Buddhahood. There's no greater victory than breaking through the darkness of innate ignorance, that's Buddhahood. Bringing forth the life state of Buddhahood, that's Buddhahood. And producing an infinite number of successors who can carry on the noble cause of Kosen Rufu. Why can he say that then? How do you have access to an infinite number of successors?
Being a mentor.
By being a mentor, everybody you mentor, their shakabuku are all tied to you as well.
Yeah.
Guarantee you you're all connected to Tony Masaoka. Okay? Guarantee you. All right? It's the same thing. Your teachers are related to the people you teach. That's why they taught you what they taught you. Because you got to know it that way in order to teach it to the people you're supposed to teach it to. So how could there not be a correct a connection? It's impossible. Okay? And it's only through that process that exponentiality of infinity becomes not happy talk, reality. Do you understand what I'm saying? Okay, so in view of the scale of the victory he achieved, Nichiren, because we're all doing it because one guy started it, right?
Ouais.
Nichiren is the fundamental teacher of the latter day of the law. Most important because he opened the path for all people to it, revealed their inherent Buddhahood by chanting Nam-myoho Renge-kyo, and established a truly humanistic religious philosophy. We regard him as a teacher of humankind. Do we regard him as God? No. Do we regard him as the founder of the world, of all living beings? Is he? No, he's nothing like that. He's the fundamental teacher of this truth that has existed everywhere and exists throughout the universe equally.
The system
If it
of
was
thinking.
you, if it was you that did it first, then we would consider you a teacher of humankind. But the point is that you are also a teacher of humankind. You just haven't pulled off what he pulled off. We can call him a teacher of humankind because he pulled off what he pulled off. You have the same potential to pull off what he pulled off, to contribute dynamically to Kosen Rufu, to the widespread propagation, the actual establishment of Kosen Rufu. Okay? Rather than it being happy talk. You can be a great leader just like Daisaku Ikeda or President Harada right now. Okay? All those guys have devoted their lives to Kosen Rufu. When you do that, you can achieve the same state.
Why we don't see yet women?
Huh?
Why we don't see a
Waiting for you.
woman?
A woman leader like that.
Oh my God, then you don't know the truth. Let me explain the truth to you real quick. If you dug enough to be appraised of all the things you need to be appraised of to refute everyone, you'd know that the Soka Gakkai is actually run by women. Okay? Do you think men could hang? I mean, seriously.
Bias.
They'd get all filled, their head filled with shit, and then, no, we've already got plenty of examples of that. I'm telling you right now, the heavyweights, the real decision makers, the real weight pushers are women's division members in Japan. Guarantee you, they are not stuck in the kitchen with their aprons on. No.
I have this kind of thinking when I see the women, the group where I am with.
Well,
they're trying. I don't know, but if they know, but I
again,
think they are.
we had this conversation last week, and we're going to extend it into later this conversation. Okay, to get to it. But what other people do, or say, or know should really not have that much to do with what you're able to determine in your own life through your own devotion and dedication to the law. If you think that what I'm reading to you makes sense and it's the truth, screw everybody else. That's not the point. You know, because you don't hear them say it. Do you think any of them actually freaking read this?
No.
No. No. Okay? Like I said last week, why do I read it? I'm putting down markers of what it says. I'm reading out loud what nobody will get around to taking the time or the energy. It's too diffusing, okay? And why do I do it? I only do it because of you guys. It's the truth. Okay? So how is there any disconnect between both of us no matter how we're functioning in this process?
Right.
There isn't any. There's no greater than, lesser than, smarter than, nothing.
But,
It's no different than what I said a minute ago
For
with all your
example-
comments and everything.
But for example, Sakyamuni Buddha, he has a Guan Yin version, the woman version of.
Canon you're talking
Yeah.
about, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so?
So
We don't practice the wisdom of the harvest,
I know.
so I don't give a shit what Shakyamuni thought. Frankly speaking, I'm way beyond that. I already passed Shakyamuni. I'm a bodhisattva of the earth. No, I mean, again, until you look at it that way, you're not listening to what Nichiren's saying.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it's
There's no but.
apart. What are the? how to say?
You want the solution,
They
which is
thought
the
about
end game.
something.
Yeah, but again, you're still in a growth process, dear.
Yeah,
You're still in a
how do
growth
you-
process.
yeah.
All of that,
Did they
understand?
think about the masculine and feminine side, or what did they want to do?
No,
when they have
listen, they're Japanese. Do you think they gave a shit? Come on.
so don't have guanyin in Japan.
What's Guanyin?
Canon.
Canon. Yes, of course
There
they
is.
do.
Yeah,
It's a
yeah,
part
okay.
of Buddhism
Yes.
that preceded
But
the
I mean, the
Vaishnava.
feminine side of the.
Yeah, and what does Canon do to attain Buddhahood? Turns into a man every time. Does Canon ever do it as a woman? No, because Canon can take on any form.
Yeah.
Yes or no, right?
Cannot take any form.
Take on any form, but always takes on the form of a man in order to attain Buddhahood or express Buddhahood. So, what good is Canon's teaching? Meh. That's why we got the Buddhism of the sowing, not Buddhism of harvest we're studying right now. It's why you make Canon look like a sorry, helpless entity. Yeah, because you're a bodhisattva of the earth. You're a living, original disciple of the original teacher. If you don't view it that way, you're not listening to what I'm saying every week. That or you don't believe what I'm saying. I mean, that's your right. Okay? But I've racked up a pretty good record of reward for having faith in the teachings of my teachers and then utilizing those teachings to validate what the teacher said as true. I didn't just take their word for it. I wasn't like, you understand where I'm coming from? Where am I?
The great path
The greatness
of the human state religion.
Okay, the great path of a humanistic religion. That's what we're on right now. We're on that great path. That's me talking right now. We're on the great path. Buddhism is originally a teaching that restores the dignity of human life. Okay? Now why does he say that? Because when it was just Shakyamuni traipsing around with a bunch of other followers, okay, it was pure and it was what's that word? Altruistic, okay. But as time went by and schools formed and hierarchical entities of BS and give me your money, okay, and let me take on political power, that stopped. That's what led to the necessity of the Buddhism of sowing. Okay? Because the Buddhism of harvest had become so corrupted, by the middle day, it no longer had any power. That's what we've read all this time through the opening of the eyes and so forth, which I'm going to read and begin in a minute. All right? So, let me go back again. Buddhism is originally a teaching that restores the dignity of human life. Moreover, it extols the sanctity of all life, not just human beings, right? Immediately after defeating the devilish functions that assailed him and attaining enlightenment. That's what we're getting into now, right? That's what that was just referring to. Immediately after defeating the devilish functions that assailed him and attaining enlightenment, Shakyamuni realized a perfectly serene and peaceful state of mind, like the sun shining tranquilly in the heavens. And he set out to expound his teaching so that all people could unlock within them this same boundless and joyous state of life. Now, he says, after defeating the devilish functions that assailed him, Shakyamuni, immediately after defeating the devilish functions that assailed him. Do you know about that? Do you know about that? Okay. Where did Shakyamuni attain Buddhahood? He was in a contemplative prayer. He was in a meditation that was a serious meditation, okay? Under the Bodhi tree, right? Okay, while he's in that meditation, he talks about this in another sutra. The Srimala something. He's attacked by what he calls it Mara, M-A-R-A, two long A's, Mara, which is the devil. Okay, which tries to blow him off the path of this deep meditation that he's been really in this samadhi for a while. Okay, so what has this been? This has been him going deeper and deeper and deeper. He finally gets to the end where he's almost clear, and what attacks him is all the doubts about whether he's full of shit or not. Okay, because that's what Mera actually is.
Fundamental
Mera is devilish
darkness.
functions. Yeah, fundamental darkness is exactly who Mera is, okay? And comes in any form, many forms, always manifests from us. Is not an outside thing from us. Its point of access to your life is you.
Yes.
It already exists there, okay? So, he says, Shakyamuni, after getting rid of Mera, that's the attainment of Buddhahood. Okay? After getting rid of that last doubt about his true identity, he realized a perfectly serene and peaceful state of mind. Like the sun shining tranquilly in the heavens. That's Buddhahood. That's what happens to all the Buddhas when they come to that realization. That's what Buddhahood is. The original understanding of the original reality. And he set out to expound his teaching so that all people could unlock within them this same boundless and joyous state of life. Again, they'd have to defeat the same thing. It wasn't going to happen from a happy talk teaching. It was a realization. Do you understand? All right, so the Lotus Sutra, deeply infused with this essence, is a teaching, this essence of what we just talked about in the previous paragraph. Deeply infused with this essence is a teaching of revitalization. We've revitalized ourselves. What are we in what way are we revitalizing ourselves? To revitalize means to go backwards in terms of being expended, right? To revitalize, that means that we're going back to our original state. All right? That's where the joy and the happiness is coming from. That's what's making that life condition manifest. All right? The Lotus Sutra, deeply infused with this essence, is a teaching of revitalization that celebrates the limitless potential of human beings. This is the message of Buddhism. Okay? Nichiren Daishonin distilled the essence of the sutra in the single law of Nam-myoho Renge-kyo and established it as a teaching that is open to all people. So what did he just say? What did he do? He distilled it. Do you know what distilled means? It's a process of purification. So when they distill whiskey, it starts out with a vat like this and ends up drop. It becomes that concentrated, that pure. Okay? Nichiren Daishonin distilled the essence, which he found in his life. I am the thus come one. That's what he realized. Distilled in the single law of Nam-myoho Renge-kyo, the essence of the sutra in the single law of Nam-myoho Renge-kyo. He's the one that realized Nam-myoho Renge-kyo. That's what we're going to call it. Okay? And established it as a teaching that is open to all people. But did he decide that's what we're going to call it? No, all he did was add Nam. Myoho Renge-kyo already has always been there. Always had been there. Do you understand? Okay. So, as a teaching that is open to all people. And the Soka Gakkai has energetically extended this great joyous path of humanistic religion throughout the world. The genuine practice of Buddhism from the times of Shakyamuni and Nichiren lives on in the practice of mentor and disciple in the Soka Gakkai. This practice is comprised of efforts based on a standalone spirit, the spirit to act based on a sense of full responsibility, a full personal responsibility in the struggle for Kosen Rufu. So us getting together for our own study meeting, is that not exactly what that is? We're taking the full responsibility. We're taking the lead in our own lives. We're not waiting for somebody else to do it for us. And we believe that we can manifest. That's the faith. We can manifest this stuff that seems like it's over our head. All right? By committing ourselves to the great vow for Kosen Rufu, we can manifest our own inherently enlightened life state, that 10th world. And by taking action with an unbegrudging spirit as taught by Nichiren in the way he lived his life and the way he propagated this teaching, we can free people from suffering and help them revitalize their lives. These awakened people in turn, through the power of dialogue, can inspire still others, giving them fresh courage and conviction. See, that's where that infinite number of exponentiality I just was talking about. The standalone practice of the first three presidents, united by the bonds of mentor and disciple, all of them, is the starting point of the magnificent worldwide spread of our movement for human revolution, for Buddhahood in your present form, or inner transformation. Tanesaburo Makaguchi, the Soka Gakkai's founding president, often described his struggle as being challenging. Often described his struggle as being as challenging as making a landing in the face of the enemy. Ever undaunted, he stood up alone. So it's not about whether they agree with you or not. It's just with a smile on your face, you don't give in to their incorrectness. You never let them spoil you. You change them.
Yeah.
All right? Ever undaunted, he stood up alone as a genuine practitioner of Nichiren Buddhism at a time when his teachings were all but lost in society and when the country as a whole was rushing headlong to war. He set an example of what it means to dedicate one's life to the law without hesitation. He said, I won't leave prison until you get your shit together and tell the truth. As long as you're going to sit there and say the Shinto talisman is going to do anything but destroy the country, I'm not going to participate. I'll stay in prison until I die. I'm old. I've already done all my shit. Right? Little did he know that, President Toda really hadn't gone it. He's there with him. All right? So, where am I?
Next page.
Next page.
Next page. That's a good reason for me not to know where I am. Second Soka Gakkai president, Josei Toda, who inherited the legacy, his mentor, Mr. Makaguchi, awoke to his own mission in prison. Okay, so he's acknowledging President Toda didn't feel like President Makaguchi before he went into jail. He was like, hey, yeah, buddy! But he was not serious as a heart attack like Makaguchi was yet. Okay? It was only by being in jail that he realized this relationship that he had with Makaguchi, what his true function in life must be then, and then anointed himself as the person that's going to carry on this thing and changed the name of the society. It wasn't Gokyu Kai or whatever anymore. It's Soka Gakkai. And it's a whole different thing. Do you understand?
Yes.
We're all Buddhists. Makaguchi never really said that. He wasn't all hung up on that fact already. Read it. All right? Second, Soka Gakkai President Josei Toda, who inherited the legacy, his mentor, Mr. Makaguchi, awoke to his own mission in prison. Both had been jailed by the wartime militaristic authorities who saw their peace-oriented Buddhist activities as a threat to the authority of Shintoism, the state religion used to rally support for the war. On his release, Mr. Toda stood up alone in the desolate, war-torn landscape of Japan to rebuild the Soka Gakkai. Mr. Toda's self-reliant practice marked the full-fledged start of a movement for the victory of the people. I, too, as a disciple who inherited the Soka spirit, embarked on a voyage into the vast uncharted waters of global Kosen Rufu. Okay? So again, Daisaku Ikeda wasn't Josei Toda's right-hand guy. He was a youth division member that grew into that position, all right, by taking upon himself to support the mentor with his life. Through their noble spiritual struggles, which were both kind of different than one another, as was Mr. Makaguchi. So we're not talking about cookie cutter shit. First three presidents, cookie cutter, cookie cutter, cookie cutter. No. Okay? Through their noble spiritual struggles, Mr. Makaguchi and Mr. Toda showed us how much an individual human can accomplish. An individual human being can accomplish. Okay? They will go down in histories as teachers who serve as an inspiration for all humankind. Just like Nichiren, he's saying. Remember, he's called Nichiren a great teacher for all humankind. He's now saying, so were my mentors, Mr. Makaguchi and Mr. Toda. It could be said that, in other words, also in that process, furthering the reality that there is no separation between you and Nichiren. Nichiren isn't like some god dude, okay, that came to earth and is different than the rest of us. All right? They will go down in history as teachers who serve as an inspiration for all humankind. It could be said that the tributes they are today receiving from countries near and far are proof of the victory of the mentors and disciples of Soka. As disciples around the world who share this noble mentor-disciple spirit, continue to open wide the great path of a humanistic religion that truly encourages and elevates people. The ideals and endeavors of our Soka movement will be applauded all the more in this century. Humanity today is earnestly seeking living examples and role models. In particular, people learn to find those who embody a humanistic philosophy, one that will usher in a happier and more hopeful future. The time has now arrived for our valiant members across the globe to be respected as bodhisattvas of the earth. This is because they are carrying out the very practice those bodhisattvas vowed to pursue. There is absolutely no doubt that Nichiren is praising our efforts in transmitting the heritage for attaining Buddhahood on a global scale, and that Shakyamuni, many treasures, and all Buddhas throughout the three existences are applauding the impressive development of our SGI movement. Okay? And then there's one more thing here that we didn't read before when we were doing those others that were behind the scenes. And what I'm going to do is now then, rather than just read this, I'm going to read from the source of this, which is here. Watch your glass, or watch my glass. Thank you. Let that go there. Okay. And so actually where this thing, SGI President Ikeda on True Cause and True Effect from page 123, actually is from this Gosha, or this teaching, this actual expression. It's, again, Lectures on the Lifespan and Expedient Means the Lifespan chapter of the Lotus Sutra by Daisaku Ikeda. Okay, this is about the Lotus Sutra. All right? So, going ahead, what I was going to read actually starts over here. I'm going to read all of this together. The practice of discussing and praising the mystic law among people deepens an individual's own faith in the mystic law and ultimately enables him or her to attain the true effect of Buddhahood. Practice is itself mystic. Tenesaburo Makaguchi, the first Soka Gakkai president, said, "Just as people who don't have daily lives won't understand the principles of daily life, those who lead lives of medium or minor good cannot possibly understand the way of life of great good. Unless people practice, they cannot possibly cherish true faith. Only when we carry out bodhisattva practice can we understand true faith. Only when we practice can we comprehend the profound significance and manifest the immeasurable benefit of faith. A way of life based on the principle of true cause is that of those who practice among the people without putting on airs. There is no need whatsoever for such people to get all dressed up, as it were. Honest and straightforward, they give others peace of mind and plant the seeds of happiness in others' hearts through their unaffected actions. This is the bodhisattva practice of the true cause. Nichiren Daishonin is the Buddha of the mystic principle of true cause. Though he is the original Buddha, he always practiced the bodhisattva way as an ordinary person. From start to finish, he struggled as a common mortal. The ordinary person is supreme. This is the essence of the Daishonin's Buddhism. Even after he had cast aside his transient role as Bodhisattva superior practices and revealed his true identity as the original Buddha at the time of the Tatsunokuchi persecution, the Daishonin did not manifest any special characteristics such as the 32 features. Nonetheless, the law of Kuan Ganjo shone brilliantly in his heart, and he carried on the actions of the original Buddha for the people of the 10,000 years of the latter day. The Daishonin manifested the ultimate humanity. This was his casting off the transient and revealing the true. Then going from where we are here. Our Buddhist practice is not one of revering the true effect. Do you understand that? What's that mean? Shakyamuni's Buddhism is the Buddhism of true effect. Okay, ours is the Buddhism of true cause. Our Buddhist practice is not one of revering the true effect. Shakyamuni attained Buddhahood, big deal. So now he's a godlike entity that we pray to? No. Since embracing the mystic law is in itself enlightenment, when we embrace the Gohonzon, we can immediately manifest the world of Buddhahood in our lives, rather than trying to hang on to something outside ourselves. The Bodhisattva practice of the Buddhism of true cause is to direct ourselves toward the 9 worlds while basing ourselves on the life of Buddhahood. Do you understand that? It's being the Buddha in your present form. It is, it might be said, to dive headlong into the mundane reality of society. What's the mundane reality of society? Nobody knows shit, and everybody thinks they know everything. Dominated by the 9 worlds based on the life of Buddhahood. In other words, our practice entails constantly going back and forth between practice for oneself of doing Gongyo and chanting Daimoku, and the practice for others of spreading the mystic law. The key to manifesting the world of Buddhahood lies in this continuing activity. To the last moment of your life. Accordingly, the Buddhism of the true cause exists in a way of life. The practice of ceaselessly striving to improve one's immediate everyday surroundings and to carry the age and society forward as a personal responsibility. That's what makes you the Buddha, right? The principles faith manifests itself in daily life, and Buddhism manifests itself in society, are thus central to the Daishonen's Buddhism. And last week we talked, that's the end of tonight. Last week we talked about some things that I was discussing as it related to Shoju and Shakabuku. And someone made a comment, one of our good buddies in the UK, and what he commented was absolutely true. You're not supposed to do one or the other to the exception of the other, okay? Which isn't the point I was trying to make. What we were really actually talking about, okay, was standing up to incorrect information when we hear it with the mercy to correct it, okay? Because in Shoju, like a lot of people think Shoju is like just not really pushing anything and being really patient and civil and even almost not really saying anything specific, okay? Almost none of us do that, okay? But it's morphed into an understanding. What? What did you say?
Chinese.
Chinese meaning.
Okay, okay. Again, Shoju and Shakabuku are 2 important things. Number one, their origin is, those are 2 Japanese words. There's no Sanskrit and Chinese and whatever. Okay, so these are concepts that were actualized during the time of Nichiren by the balance of the priesthood in all the other 5 schools and everything else. Okay, that's why what he was saying was so revolutionary. Because he was talking about Buddhahood in your present form, whereas everything else in the teachings of Shakyamuni calls for a long period of generation and manifestation of these improved states. Nichiren is the first to say, through the invocation of Nam-myoho Renge-kyo, we can achieve that state simultaneously. We don't have to go cause and wait for the effect. We can manifest the original state at any moment. Okay, with the correct understanding that it's there and pursuing it. All right. So the point that I was trying to make is that when we're talking about these 2 teachings, the Buddhism of the sowing is one that allows you a great deal of latitude, because you can use Shoju when you see it appropriate, but you should also always know Shoju is the easy, Like you're talking to your mom. How do you shakabuku your mom versus somebody that you just know that's a smart ass, thinks they know everything? I mean, you're going to come off differently.
Right.
Okay?
Right.
All right? So that's the whole point of shoju versus shakabuku. And what I'm trying to say here is the fact that the shakabuku is the most merciful and correct way to propagate the correct teaching in the latter day. Yes, there are circumstances where shoju will be appropriate, but it's not the way of the day as shakabuku is. Shakabuku is go in and they're usually, okay, and again, this is the other important thing I wanted to say for our friend from the UK that made this point last week. You know, when we talk about Buddha lands or the appropriate teaching for a particular space geographically, okay, we need to always keep in mind that there are places that are Buddhist countries where there's already a slanderous understanding of what the Buddhist teachings are, and there are places where Buddhism is just another word. They know it exists, they don't know much about it. Even we were just talking about India, where Shakyamuni lived and was born and raised and everything. 1% Buddhists in all of India, one of the most populated countries in the world. It's all Hindu and
Jainism.
not Jainism. What's the two guys that are on the two countries that are on the outside edge? Pakistan. What are Pakistanis?
Pakistan is a partition of India.
Yeah, I know, but what religion?
Muslim.
Yeah, Muslims. Okay, so it's mostly Muslims, and okay, so the point that I'm trying to make is that once again, we're supposed to pursue this on the basis of faith in the Daishonin's teachings. We're supposed to do shakabuku. You know, Nichiren did shakabuku. Okay, now, did he talk to everybody the same way with this? Some people think that shakabuku is pounding somebody or being, you know, upside down with them or kind of like setting them straight. That is not shakabuku.
No.
The meaning of shakabuku is the truth, the unfiltered truth, the way it really is. Okay? Expedient means, okay, are the...
It would be shoju, expedient means.
Pardon?
Soju would be more expedient means.
Shoju would definitely be expedient
Yes.
means because you're not even meeting the... If you're doing
I'm not
shoju,
talking
you're
about
not
it.
even talking about Nam-myoho Renge
That's
Kyo.
what they do with my.
Okay, so what I'm going to do before I have to stop talking, and I'm sorry I've taken so much time, but the easiest thing for me to do now is just to segue right over to shakabuku and shoju, okay? And just read from the dictionary what's the difference. Shakabuku first, okay? A method of expounding Buddhism, the aim of which is to suppress others' illusions, okay, and to subdue their attachment to error or evil. This refers to the Buddhist method of leading people, particularly its opponents, to the correct Buddhist teaching, which would be in the latter day of the law, only Nam-myoho Renge Kyo, okay? Buddhist teaching by refuting their erroneous views and eliminating their attachments to opinions they have formed about Buddhism, okay?
But it needs a lot of teaching and a lot of hours to understand that you were wrong.
Oh, of course.
And it takes a
I
lot
would
of
rather
energy
start-
to make somebody think another way than they are thinking from 100 years or 1,000 years.
I understand, but the point is that you're a seed planter.
And you have to be
Yeah, dear, but listen, you're a seed planter. You don't control their karma,
Hey,
okay? You don't control their slander.
plant the
Okay, you
seed.
just that is your primary job. However far you can take that, great. But that doesn't make you the beginning and end of everything involved in everything. Okay, you also have a seed that got planted by somebody that I don't know, but that's how I know you. Okay, that's how that's the only reason we're having this conversation is because that seed got planted those years ago in a whole different world, a whole different place. Okay, ditto for me. All right, so let me finish what this is saying. All right. He's saying a method of expounding Buddhism, the aim of which is to suppress others' illusions and to subdue their attachment to evil or errors, to take them from delusion to clarity, from, you know, being an ordinary human being to being a Buddha. This refers to the Buddhist method of leading people, particularly its opponents, to the correct Buddhist teaching by refuting their erroneous views and eliminating their attachment to opinions they have formed. The practice of Shakyamuni, the practice of Shakabuku means to correct another's false views and awaken that person to the truth of Buddhism. It means you're not pulling any punches in that process. If I try, is the truth of Buddhism anything now that we're in the latter day of the law other than Nam-myoho Renge-kyo? No.
No.
So if I'm going to them and talking about the four whatever, this and that, Shakyamuni stuff from, the Buddhism of the harvest, I'm not doing what I'm talking about right now. Do you understand? Okay.
You have to go
I showed you. I mean, again, I don't have...
erroneous views. So
Pardon? What?
erroneous views.
Erroneous views. But again, how you approach those erroneous views. Do you encourage them with conversation that takes them closer to a more correct view? Do you literally refute them? Literally refuting them is Shakabuku. Okay? Encouraging them to continue along this path of self-discovery is Shoju. Lightweight Shakabuku is not Shoju. Shakabuku is Shakabuku. Okay? Shoju is Shoju. Shoju has nothing to do with talking about Nam-myoho Renge-kyo.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm going to read it. And everybody thinks it does. Everybody thinks it's a nice way. I won't be objectionable. That Shoju. I'll say it only to your capacity. That's not Shoju. Shoju is a blowing off telling them the true teaching. Let me read it. Let me read the whole thing.
Yes.
Okay. The practice of Shakabuku means to correct another's false views. So you're in a process of correcting them. You're disputing what they're saying, okay? And awaken that person to the truth of Buddhism. Awaken that person to the truth of Nam-myoho Renge-kyo. We're in the latter day of the law. There is no other truth in Buddhism other than Nam-myoho Renge-kyo. Are you with me? The term Shakabuku is used in contrast with Shoju, which means to lead others to the correct teaching gradually according to their capacity. We don't do that, do we? We don't say, how much do you know about Buddhism before I get into this? Right? We don't do that. Okay, so we don't do Shoju, really, is my point. You just call lightweight Shakabuku Shoju because you don't know what the hell the difference is. That's what I'm saying. All right? The term Shakabuku is used in contrast with Shoju, which is why I read the dictionary so much, man. Because somebody that knew what the hell they were talking about put this in as the entry. Okay? They have a much greater understanding than me. I'm not relying on my understanding. I'm not asking you to either. Okay? I'm telling you where I get my material. Okay? The practice of Shakabuku thus means to correct another's false views and awaken that person to the truth of Buddhism, to Nam-myoho Renge-kyo. The term Shakabuku is used in contrast with Shoju, to create a contrast, which means to lead others to the correct teaching gradually, according to their capacity, and without directly refuting their religious misconceptions. But none of you have that conversation that often without directly refuting their religious misconceptions. Okay, now you might be doing that to some degree when you're talking to these other people that you're saying that, they have some misunderstanding and you're not really disputing or enraging them further or getting them to slander more by trying to correct them when they don't believe you know the truth. That's not the important thing. The important thing is that you stand up for the truth and you state what the truth is. Period. Right. Then if anybody wanted to listen to me, great. And if you didn't, I did what I'm supposed to do. All right? It says the term Shakabuku is these two methods, Shoju and Shakabuku, of propagation are described in the Sri Mele Sutra. Great Consonant Insight by Tentai and other works, and it's those three, by the Sri Mele Sutra and also Tentai's Great Concentration and Insight and other works. Nichiren, who employed Shakabuku in his propagation, writes in his 1272 treatise, The Opening of the Eyes, when the country is full of evil people without wisdom, then Shoju is the primary method to be applied as described in the Peaceful Practices chapter of the Lotus Sutra. That could almost be confusing, isn't it? Okay? Do you understand what he's saying? Let me get through the whole thing and you will. When the country is full of evil people without wisdom, that means that they wouldn't know about Buddhism at all, right? They're not slanderers, they're evil. They don't do the things that purify their lives, which is the practice of Buddhism. Do you understand? They can't get around causality the way a Buddhist can. Do you understand? All right, so he's saying, when the country is full of evil people without wisdom, then shoju is the primary method to be applied. Because mostly you're talking to people without wisdom. You don't want to get into a debate with them. They're not going to understand what you're saying. But at the time when there are many people of perverse views who slander the law, then shakabuku should come first, as described in the Never Disparaging chapter. Here, evil people without wisdom means those who are ignorant of the Buddhist teachings. That's the only reason that they're ignorant. Okay, that's the only reason they're evil, because they're ignorant of the truth. That's what's creating the evil in their lives, not knowing what the hell is the right thing to do. So they're doing the wrong thing. Do you understand? That's why they're all evil? It's not because they're all devil worshippers. That's not what he's saying. Here, evil people without wisdom. Without wisdom means you don't know what the truth is. That's why you're an evil person. Get it? Here, evil people without wisdom means those who are ignorant of the Buddhist teachings. They don't understand causality. They don't know about the law. Evil means the unhappiness of acquiring no roots of goodness. Because this isn't dealing with just this lifetime, baby. This is the prescription for what you're going to get so many more in the future that you can't count them, you can't even imagine them. So this is an important thing, right? He's saying those who are ignorant of the Buddhist teachings. Evil means the unhappiness of acquiring no roots of goodness. It is contrasted with people of perverse views who slander the law. Who are they? Those who have a biased view of Buddhism and slander its correct teaching. Those people who think they know something about Buddhism, but don't understand the Buddhism of sowing, which is the correct teaching, and therefore they slander the teaching of Nichiren. Do you understand what that just said then?
So that they stop in the provisional teaching and they don't go ahead.
Right, because there's no continuum of the provisional teaching beyond Nichiren. I mean, that's the whole point. At the time of Nichiren, that's the whole thing where this Shoju and Shakabuku thing comes
from. So to
from.
cross this line, you need a lot of studying.
Yeah, well, you can't do it without study.
So most
faith,
of people
practice, and
just
study.
do
Faith, practice, and study. Faith. Yeah, these people that are just, help me. I've been saying they're full of shit for a long time. When are you going to believe me? I'm basically reciting what the Shonen is saying, what the teaching is, how you can overcome these problems. Okay? You can't overcome them just with like, help me. You're never seeking wisdom?
So Shoju is not...
How are you going to help anybody else if you never seek wisdom? Tell them stories about how some mysterious shit you don't understand at all, but somehow it saved you?
So in this case...
You know, how much sense does that make? It's stupid.
It's everywhere.
Yeah,
Everybody.
Let me finish the very end. Okay, let me finish to the very end. It is contrasted with people of perverse views who slander the law, i.e., who have a biased view of Buddhism, not recognizing the teaching of Shakyamuni that the Lotus Sutra is his highest teaching, that he's prophesied in there that there's a former, a middle, and a latter day of the law, that the actual source of his teaching will become manifest and the latter day, in the fifth 500-year period of the latter day. All the little signals that told Nichiren, holy shit, I might be onto something here. Do you get it? If you were studying any of those other sutras from any of those other schools, you would have never crossed that point. Okay? And this is hundreds of years after Tentai's left. Okay? And everything has begun to get a little screwy again. That's why the manifestation of the original teacher has to occur in that fifth 500-year period, because he's got to set it down and lay it out for everybody forever, for the full 10,000 years of Mappo and beyond. Nichiren describes Bodhisattva Never Disparaging, who bowed in respect to everyone he met and praised them as potential Buddhas, as a practitioner Now, what would you think? Is he Shoju or Shakabuku? He's the ones constantly go, I praise your Buddha nature. I would never slander you, yada, yada, yada. They throw sticks and shit at him. And he runs out of range of the sticks and shit. And then he turns around and he says the same thing. He's a nice guy. He's saying nothing but swell things to the people he's talking to. He's not attacking them. He's not refuting them.
He wants to.
Is he doing
attract
shoju? Is he doing shoju or shakabuku?
Shoju.
Shakabuku.
Shakabuku.
You think it's shoju? That's what I wanted you to say shoju, so I could say no, no,
So
no,
he's nice
because he's forever saying that they are Buddhas.
Yeah, he's saying the truth.
He's teaching the truth. So it's not the manner in which it's spoken, or the circumstance under which it's spoken, or the tone in which it's spoken, or by whom it's spoken. Is it the freaking truth or not?
Yeah.
Okay? Does it conform to the original teaching as expressed by the original teacher as he made his advent in the latter day of the law and revealed the original teaching? Nam-myoho Renge-kyo. That's why all those Buddhas all became enlightened by Nam-myoho Renge-kyo. You with me? Mm-hmm. Okay, Nichiren describes Bodhisattva never disparaging, who bowed in respect to everyone he met and praised them as potential Buddhas, as a practitioner of Shakabuku. In citing never disparaging as an example, Nichiren made clear that Shakabuku is not a form of verbal or rhetorical aggression, okay? But an expression of reverence for the truth that everyone possesses of Buddha nature, and of compassion for people that don't realize it. At the same time, in bowing and praising people as potential Buddhas, never disparaging was in effect challenging and refuting their misconceptions about Buddhahood. And for this reason, he was attacked. Get it? There's so much more I was going to read you, but we've run out of time by a bunch. So thank you so much for this week. See you next week.
Thank you.
Thank you.